When I need to impress someone with a gift, I go straight to 1-800-Flowers. There's a reason they've spent 50 years as the floral authority. Every stem is hand-selected by a vetted florist, and with same-day delivery nationwide, 100% satisfaction guaranteed. That's why millions go to 1-800-Flowers to celebrate life's most important moments. Order now for up to 40% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Act now and save up to 40% at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
Hey everyone, my name is Laura and I am your host today, also a registered nurse and a master's level Splankna practitioner. And here on the podcast, we talk about all things Splankna. If you're new here, brief explanation. Splankna is a faith-based mind-body protocol for processing emotion, grief, unresolved issues, or even trauma that you have in your life. Because what we know is the body keeps score of everything you have ever been through. It remembers everything. And sometimes that remembering, even on a muscular or cellular level of our body, can show up as triggers, as emotional disturbances, anxiety feelings, feelings of deep sadness that you just can't get out of. Emotions are meant to flow and they're meant to be processed. And when that doesn't happen, it can cause big issues for us. So Splankna is a way to bring those issues to the feet of your creator and to say, I'm ready to heal, I'm ready to surrender, I'm ready to let go. And when that happens, there is amazing stories of breakthrough that continue to show up day after day when I meet with my clients. And so what I'm doing is I have started a series. I am bringing on 10 practitioners that I know personally, that I'm friends with, and I'm asking them to tell us their story of how they heard about Splankna. At what point did they realize, like, wow, this is actually changing me and changing my life? And what is life like for them as a practitioner? My hope is that you would be able to hear from these people and click with some of them, and have the courage to reach out to some of them and make appointments with some of them. I hear from people on TikTok and from this podcast all the time, and they're like, hey, I'm ready to start working, but there's nobody in my area. All of the women that I've been interviewing recently, they're all virtually trained, and you can find all of their contact information on my website, lauramilliken.com, Lauramilliken.com. and click on Preferred Practitioners to find their contact information. Now, today I'm interviewing a woman named Tiffany Sturms. She is just outside of Denver, Colorado. She has been a practitioner for 17 years, and she is a master's level. She specializes in childhood trauma, SA recovery, and marriage work. She combines her faith, compassion, coaching, and proven techniques to help her clients find clarity, peace, and renewed hope, which is the name of her business. She's going to speak specifically today about how she works with married couples in a Splankna setting, whether one of the spouses or both are ready to start working, and how this is a completely different approach than talk therapy or traditional marriage counseling. So if you or anyone you know could benefit from today's conversation, please go ahead and share this episode to offer them some hope as well. Here's my conversation with Tiffany.
Okay, so my story, let's see, way back when, 25 years ago, when Sarah Thiessen was developing this protocol, me and my siblings, we had been seeing a chiropractor who was like, you've got way too much trauma for me to work with you. He did EFT. And he's like, you need to go see this girl, Sarah. And my sister's like, well, let's go. And I'm like, I don't want to go by myself. My brother's like, I don't want to go by myself, because we had a lot of trauma.
But you were adults at this point.
Yes, we were. Yeah. I was pregnant with my first child. I was 21, probably at the time, 21, young mom. And so we go and we're like, oh, wow, this is pretty amazing. And then just kept going for our own healing for on and off for years. And then my sister was trained. She's like helped Sarah. She's a co-director, Heather Hughes. She's like, this can't just be for us. Like, this needs to be, like, it's too long to get into you. Other people need to be doing this, so let's do this. And so they started training people. And I was a young mom. This was like 6 years later. I had 2 children at this time, and I am cleaning houses because I'm a stay-at-home mom, and we can't do anything financially outside of our norm. And so I was like, okay, I'll clean houses with this lady and make the money to go to this training. And I'm going to get trained just for us, just for my kids, my husband, me, just to use at home. And God had so many other plans. So,
as he always does.
Right. I think there was a whole time frame of like not feeling like you're enough. And so I didn't have a background in psychology. I didn't have a background in therapy. I had a background in God, knowing the Lord and what he does. And I had my own healing. And I remember just sitting there one day and God's like, this isn't just for you guys, right? Like, and I kept thinking, yeah, I have always felt like I get a choice. Growing up, I always felt powerless. Lots of abuse and like I didn't have any control over any of that. And God's like, if you just surrender this to me and let me walk you through it, you're going to be just fine, as a practitioner. And then I didn't want people to feel so like stuck in their label, stuck in, I was told my future had nothing. I was going to be nothing. I was going to experience nothing. I didn't have anything to offer. So I don't want people to think, oh, I have to be stuck in this label, or stuck in what the world says I am or what my trauma has deemed. I can choose to take control by surrendering it to the Lord in sessions. And he meets us in that and going, okay, so change the trajectory of my life. And he did. I thank God every day. Me and my husband, we tease about like, where would we be if we wouldn't have done all that healing work? I wouldn't be here. No way. I wouldn't be working with people. So yeah.
You wouldn't be the mom you are, the wife you are.
No. My kids would, when I was a young, or probably 18, I remember thinking, I'm never getting married and I'm never having children because statistically, this is not going to go well.
And I've seen it not go well with my own eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I also had a skewed version of marriage. I had a skewed version of relationship. And God was showing me like, this isn't what statistics say. If you let me take you through climbing this mountain, we'll get to the other side and then you can start helping other people and I can walk you through supporting them in their mountains, whatever they may be. And I was thinking about this morning, what I wanted to talk about. And one of the things I was thinking about is we look at triggers and traumas, T's and things like that. They shape us and they skew us and they create this version of who we are that isn't actually who we are. Mm-hmm. When God knit us together in the beginning, before the world corrupted us, and our, I say big T's, little T's, those are traumas, big traumas, little traumas, they change us. And so when I talk to clients, I'm like, this isn't about changing you and who you are. This isn't about changing anything about you. It's actually about bringing you back to who you were originally designed to be.
I love that.
God knew you. He designed you. He created you. He gathered all these ingredients, put them together, made you, and then put you in this world. And this world, there's hard things in the world. And sometimes they change us for the better and sometimes they don't. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes we, like me, I had this skewed version of relationship and marriage, and I was destined to not be very married for very long. And I decided that was not going to be I wasn't going to let that be my thing, you know? And so as certain things, no, I don't have a perfect marriage by any means. We are
None
growing
of
and
us do. Yeah.
we are growing every day, but we are choosing to grow every day and not let those things get in the way. So, and I don't think there's anything you can't come back from. So,
That's a bold statement.
I
There's
know.
nothing you can't come back
I
from.
know. I've worked
Because
with
how many of us
a
feel like
lot.
we are too far gone,
I
you
know.
know? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. If I would have settled into that idea, you know, I wouldn't have the life that I have now where I get to sit with clients and speak truth into them of their design, of their identity, of who they are in God's eyes. Because one of the patterns that I've noticed over the years is that we don't see ourselves the way that God sees us. There's no way with the things that we say to ourselves, the um the way we curse ourselves, the way we talk down to ourselves, the way we put things off because we don't think we're enough, all those fun things that we hear in the back of our mind,
Yeah.
saying, don't do it, you're not good enough. So,
Yeah. I sat literally yesterday with a woman and she couldn't make eye contact with me. It was her first session. Um, and I was just asking her to give me a brief idea of what her life has looked like, just a snapshot. And at the end of it, she concluded, I've done a lot of really bad things. And she couldn't even look me in the eye when she said that.
yeah,
And I just said to her, I was like, I just need you to hear the things you've done in your life. My guess is they were out of fear. They were out of survival. They were out of trying to survive, protect yourself. And I would love to see you give yourself a little bit of grace and compassion for those really bad things you've done.
exactly.
And that's
Yeah.
all. I mean, I feel like being a practitioner has changed the way I view anyone. You could show
Same.
me the worst of the criminals in prison,
Uh-huh.
the the people who have done the most horrendous things, and because of what I know about how the subconscious works, because of what I
Uh-huh.
know about trauma, because of what I know about spiritual warfare, I feel like it has given me the ability to see through a lot of that stuff and just be like, you at one point were a sweet, scared little boy.
Exactly. Exactly. I feel exactly the same way. I tell clients there's nothing new under the sun, and there isn't anything that you have done that God doesn't already know. He already knows, everything that you have deemed that are bad that you've done.
Mm.
That's another reason I'm like with triggers. People are always saying, I'm triggered. Oh, the enemy's triggering me. I'm getting triggered. I look at triggers as a good thing. I look
I
at
do
trigger.
too.
It's
I've
so
never
funny,
heard anyone
right?
else say that.
It's
Yes.
like
Say more about that.
a trigger. When I get triggered, I give God the credit that he has brought that to the surface, put it on my screen and said,
Yes.
you're not going to unsee this until it's done. So come on, let's get in the chair. Let's,
It's an invitation.
yes. And I
Yes.
can choose death or I can choose life. Death is getting triggered over and over again for the rest of my life, or life is going, okay, I'm surrendering this to you.
Yeah. What do you want to tell me about this thing? Why is
Yeah,
this such an
exactly.
issue for me? What lie am I believing? What am I
Exactly.
missing? Yeah. Or
Yeah,
what am I holding on to or finding comfort in that
exactly.
is not you? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bubbling it to the surface, I always, for some reason, always see it like this kind of triggers is like you know, a bubble to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't unsee it.
Yes, I love that. I love that you said that. My husband says the same thing about um, we went through a pretty intentional season in our marriage of healing our relationship. And a lot of stuff that I had stuffed and shoved and not talked about and given a pass for. And, I just was like a person who I just don't want to get into it. I don't want to talk about the hard stuff. Like, let's just pretend it's not there. Well, you just can't do that forever. Surprise, surprise.
right?
So we went through a season of like, okay, I'm going to say the things. And in the beginning, it would cause a lot of arguments for us because it puts people on the defensive and offensive and all the things. But now my husband says, when there's a big emotion that comes up and it looks like an argument or what people would call an argument, he's like, I think it's actually an amazing thing because whatever hurt is buried. For whatever reason, it bubbled up to the top. And you really can only deal with it when it's up at the top. And when you're just on a regular Tuesday running errands, you can't do a lot of deep heart work with your spouse when
Mm-hmm.
the stuff you haven't tapped into the emotion of it. You don't you know you're in like checklist mode. So his whole mindset of like those kind of hard conversations has changed because he's like, this is an opportunity for us to support each other, to hear
Yes,
and better understand each other. And it's the same with God when we get triggered. He's like, hey,
exactly.
here's an opportunity.
I love that you brought up marriage. It's one of my hearts. Like, I really love working with married couples. It's the original, like, very first example we have in the Bible where the enemy tries to divide and conquer, with Adam and Eve. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're not getting in here.
Yeah. So why
So,
do you love working with couples so much? Because that feels intimidating to me.
mm,
Right now, my husband and I are watching, it's a literal therapy show, and it's a marriage counselor meeting with couples in real time. And it can get heated, it can
uh-huh.
get intense. And you're like, whoa, now you're managing the experiences of two different people. Like, tell me about that. Because I haven't done a lot of marriage counseling. I've done it one time, and it was probably a year ago.
No, I love working with married couples. It's the idea of the person that you choose. So you choose this person to marry, to spend the rest of your life with in the most intimate of moments. And yet we don't have conversations we're scared of, or we hold back, or we hide from, or we blame, and it's this idea of why would we let the enemy continue to destroy marriages? When my husband and I first got married, um, in our premarital counseling, we took a test, and it was, his side and my side, and he has to answer these questions. And one of the things that we like scored low in, both of us, was communication. We were kind of on the same page on most things, but communication was the one thing. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. We walked away from that with no resource other than statistics. Statistics are, you are young and come from brokenness and have all these different things, and statistics are against you, and you don't communicate well. So
Good luck.
have at it. And my husband and I are like, what do we do with this? And both of us have this kind of idea of like, yeah, we're not doing that. And so we fought, in the first 10 years, we fought up that mountain. We were dealing with our healing at the same time, which was not easy. Having children, young, coming from brokenness, it was it was the idea of we have to be very intentional. And it's not perfect every time, and it's grown over the years. We're getting ready to celebrate, I think, 26 years of marriage. And so I'm like, it's takes time and effort, and to see, and I've had mentors tell me, I would be all upset and up in arms about something he would do, and somebody kept reminding me, do you think that's his heart? Do you think that's who he is? He's just having a bad moment, like, you know, deal with the moment. And so we have decided over the years in discussions of being very intentional in our lives for each other. So we ask things like it can be simple things like, and clients, as I'm working with clients, they don't even think about these things, of like the honeymoon phase and being intentional. And, I'm like, the honeymoon phase doesn't have to be a phase. It can be forever. You can date at the grocery store, you know? Um, and so intentional is looking at it from their perspective, or, um, I don't see my husband as a big jerk because he can't figure out dinner until it's dinner time. He doesn't plan and pre-plan for all the things and taking stuff out of the freezer. He's got to run to the store, and now we're eating at 8 o'clock. He's not a jerk about that, you know? It's because he is in the present moment. He's not thinking about all the things, you know?
3 hours from now. Yeah.
Exactly. He's not a pre-planner. And so, you know, when I'm intentional in like trying to understand who he is and where his wounds are, and giving him grace, we can meet each other in that. And so working with married couples, I don't want to see, I want people to stay married. I don't want divorce to be a thing. I don't want people to be split apart and torn apart, because I have seen that over the years in not just family, friends, you know, that it is not easy by any means. But if it's something that's healable, why not?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Do you often have people come to you because one of the couples is like, I'm done, I'm out of here, I can't do this anymore?
I've
Or
had
do they
several of those.
or do they come when they're like, hey, we still believe this could be fixed and healed, so we're full of hope and we're
Yeah.
ready to.
It's very interesting. I've had both. I've had, you know, something really big has happened, like an affair, or, um, you know, some addiction has come out in some way, where you know, one's dragging the other in. I've had some, that are at the end of the rope, like they're ready to sign divorce papers. And then I've had some come in where it's just, let's work on, you know, this one. The wife
Mhm.
is like, just come with me. I need you to come with me because I don't want to sit in this alone. And then it winds up being, we're working on them together kind of situation. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. Okay. You know,
Meaning, like, what do you mean together? Like in the same session, or like one session is for him, one session is for her?
well, I've done both of those too.
Okay.
Which the working on them together, like a simultaneous session, is not easy, and I only do that when I feel like I'm prompted by the Lord,
Yeah.
because it can be messy. But sometimes it's where a couple will book a session. They'll book like 2 hours, and we pray and we ask the Lord, who do you want to work on? And it's so interesting that he knows the exact person, the exact trauma, the exact time that correlates with whatever they're struggling with. And
Mhm.
actually, you know, I believe that when you are working with somebody, whether it's a couple or somebody individually, if you're doing early childhood trauma work, you are working on marriage stuff,
Oh, yeah.
because it
Oh,
feeds
yeah.
into all of their expectations in their marriage.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Our Ritual. And honestly, I love what they're doing because it makes real relationship support actually doable in the middle of real life. Splankna is amazing for like resetting those deep subconscious patterns that you have. But Our Ritual is a relationship support platform. It combines licensed therapy sessions with practical tools and guided exercises that you can use between sessions. So it's not just talking about your problems, it's actually learning how to communicate better, work through conflict, and reconnect. It's 100% virtual, which means no driving anywhere. And they have flexible scheduling, even nights and weekends. So if you're anything like me with kids and full schedules, that matters. They also offer individual plans, so you don't have to wait until your spouse is ready. You can start growing and strengthening yourself right now. If you want to check it out, I have a link for you in the show notes. When you go through that link, you can use code ENERGY20 for 20% off your first month. Again, just click the link in the show notes and use code ENERGY20 for 20% off.
I didn't grow up learning to respect my husband because I was taught that by my parents. There was no respect for the men in my life when I was little. And so I had to learn that and heal those wounds over the years. And so now I know what it is like to respect my husband, you know? So, or even to just receive his love.
Yeah,
So,
that's a big one.
yeah,
Even
I,
if you're
I,
married to a great man, a
I
loving
know
man, if you have a thing running inside of you that refuses to be loved or dependent on anyone else, it's going to be hard to connect
exactly.
with your spouse.
Exactly. I think the Lord, so my husband and I were married 10, 10 or 10 years into our marriage, and he would say, I love you all the time. And I was just like, yeah, that's just something you say. Okay, love you. you know? And
Don't mean
it,
it, but I'll say it.
yeah, it's just something we all say. It doesn't have a lot of meaning, you know? And there was one day he said it and it landed that the Lord had healed that in me, that it was like, I always say it's like this dam that was holding it all back. Like I had built this dam, or the traumas had built this dam where he was trying to flood me with the love that he had, and it couldn't get past the dam. And so when that dam was broken and it landed, I was like, oh, wait. That's what that feels like. It was so intense in the moment, and he felt it. Like he experienced that landing for the first time as well.
How? In
I
you?
don't know. It was like he was having this reaction to experiencing it together. And I think it's what God means when he knits us together and we become one. And he's like, oh, I know that landed. I,
Wow.
I, I could see it. I could, you know, it's this idea of when I start to feel anxious, he knows, and he tries to like, because
Yeah.
we're
So
intentional.
you were a grown woman when you felt loved for the very first time. And you would say that was what broke the dam was the healing the Lord brought you in Splankna.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And having my spouse continuing to hold on for dear life in our
Yeah, he
marriage
was
and
committed to you.
continuing to fight for that dam to be broken. He was very supportive in my healing process and Splankna and what I'm doing. And I want everyone to experience that. I want everyone to experience that God can break open whatever the dam may be. Mine was not feeling enough and not being not feeling like I was able to be lovable. Um, to, I've worked with so many different clients of just feeling emotions. Like I had a client a long time ago that never experienced emotions to the point of not crying at all, never crying in places where you should
Which
actually.
means they're also not feeling joy because you can't just turn off the bad emotions. They just all
Exactly.
turn off.
Yes, exactly. When we give the enemy the right to, or when we step outside of God's boundaries to try to turn something off, the enemy it's his playground now. He gets to do whatever he wants with it. Why would he let you feel joy? No
Mm-hmm.
way, right?
Yeah, he tricks you into thinking, hey, I can help you. I'll get rid of all your sadness, all your anger, all your frustration. What he doesn't
Yeah,
tell you is I'm also going to get rid of all your joy, all your hope, all your elation,
exactly.
all your love. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's always a trick. There's always a backhand to those promises.
exactly.
Can you talk
Exactly.
more about what other things do you see patterns of like if this is showing up in your marriage, it's likely that like you had something like this in your childhood? Because I think a lot of people think my childhood was so long ago. There's no way that's affecting my marriage. It's just because my spouse is impossible, or it's just because I was born this way.
Right. Well, and also you got to think about how we are created differently, male and female. We are also raised differently. And so we have these expectations that this person who wasn't even in our home, did not experience anything the same, is going to do things the exact same way that we do. That's just,
Mm,
that's
let's just acknowledge that.
maddening. That's
Yeah.
maddening, right? And we have different personalities, right? And so, um, the patterns that I see. So my husband and I, we were talking about, we deemed it like sandpaper. It's the enemy knows your wounds. He knows your trauma, right? He knows yours and he knows your husband's, and he loves to use that against each other. If he can
Yeah.
rough you up with sandpaper, he can create, if you rub two pieces of sandpaper together, eventually you're going to catch it on fire, right? It's going to
Mm.
burn a hole, right? It's going to burn a hole in one of those pieces of sandpaper, maybe even both. I've never tried to actually rub them together for very long because it gets hot,
Yeah.
And so if he can do that enough. And so it's this idea of like, Rejection. Rejection is a big pattern. If I always felt rejected by the men in my life or my parents or whoever it may be, why would I ever think that my husband wasn't going to reject me? Everything that he would do would feel like a rejection, or the pattern of I'm not enough. I have always felt like I'm not enough, so I've got to do better, be better. And so if my husband would come in and say, "Oh, I'm going to do the dishes because I'm not done," that would look like you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
See, you're not a good
You're a
wife.
terrible wife, so I'm going to
Exactly.
cover your lack.
Exactly, exactly. And so it will start filtering like a sieve the goodness out of what they're doing. Like, I didn't see that my husband was actually trying to be supportive and help me by doing the dishes. I looked at it as he's going, "Yeah, see, you don't you don't get things done like I do."
Mhm.
You know? Yeah.
He's
So,
trying to love you and you're in competition with him
exactly.
in that moment.
Exactly. And so there are obviously, in marriage there is the intimacy, if you have a lot of wounding in this area, you might not be inclined to be intimate, and so that can land as rejection to your spouse. If your spouse has got a rejection wound and you have a sexual trauma wound, right?
Mhm.
And so it's the idea of if I'm not desiring because there's still brokenness and there's still wounds, or um, I don't initiate in some way, he's feeling like I don't want him. I'm rejecting him. There's something wrong with him.
Yeah.
And
So
so
it's like
there's
so many
those.
things get
Mm.
crossed in the unsaid, in the assumptions, in the filters
Oh,
we don't even know we
yes,
have. That's the thing about
exactly.
filters is we don't even know we have them. We
Mm-hmm.
just see it as truth. It's just hitting us the way
Exactly.
it's hitting us. And the thought that there might be another version of this story does not cross our minds most of the time.
Exactly. And it can be as simple as like doing the dishes. And enough of those that sounds silly, right? Like, who cares about dishes, right? They shouldn't be
Right.
why we break up a marriage. But enough of those little traumas, little T's over time build up to now I'm resentful. Now I don't want to talk to you. Now I really don't want to have any intimacy with you. I don't trust you. I don't, you know, and then we're
Yeah, that
done.
doesn't surprise me because I've heard a lot from the Gottman Institute. They study relationships and
Hmm.
they say what builds a healthy marriage is the hundreds of tiny things that happen.
Hmm.
Little
Exactly.
tiny moments of like your spouse walks in a room and you have a like eye contact and a happy face at them. Like just
Yeah.
like hey, an impression of like I'm glad you're here. Um
Uh-huh.
it's not the grand gestures once or twice a year that since conversely that or inversely that those 100,000
Exactly.
tiny moments in the opposite direction would also tear down a marriage.
Exactly. I not just Splankna, like I work with clients, but I also coach at the same time. And so I'm working with a client and I'm telling them like we're healing the wounds of the trauma that happened in the marriage. But then we're talking about, dating. You'd never stop dating. Why would you stop dating your spouse? I'm like, it can be a lavish, like thought out plan, or it can be get on this shopping cart and let me run you through the parking lot and call you dollface or whatever
And
it may
laugh
be.
together and
And it doesn't have to be a sweet text or just to say, I see you today.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be the big grand gestures like you're saying. But we have
Mhm.
to be intentional about it. And one of the things my husband and I were talking about is that um, we don't have hard conversations. We don't even have, if we're struggling in something like intimacy or communication, or we don't talk about those things and we don't know why. Like if I'm not feeling really emotionally connected to my husband, I will keep it to myself. Why? Why would you keep that to yourself? And so I grew up not trusting. Like I had to hold all my things, right? Because if I showed vulnerability, vulnerability would be used as a weapon against me in some way, shape, or form. And so God healing those, now I can be vulnerable and say the things, the hard things, and know He's not going anywhere.
Hmm.
He's going to hear that truth, and He is going to either just absorb it and say, okay, I need to make change, or we're going to be able to talk it out in some way, you know?
Hmm.
And so that's another thing Splankna has healed,
Yeah.
learning to
How,
trust somebody.
you've listed so many really powerful, life-changing things in your healing in Splankna, but how would you describe you before Splankna and after? Like, from what I'm hearing, you were guarded, you were
Oh,
independent,
I was
you
not
were
even.
not trusting. Were you just like a brick wall?
Yes, I was, I had commitment issues. Um, I did not understand my own feelings. I grew up in a household of extreme abuse. And so living in a PTSD kind of state, your nervous system is always in this kind of either frozen or flight mode. Like you're either out or you're like stuck kind of situation. um, I wasn't adventurous. I wasn't, it was kind of like this low grade depression kind of situation
Wow.
where I just kind of stay in the background. I wouldn't be doing this podcast. Nobody wants to hear me talk. That kind of space
Hmm.
before this.
Lonely,
I
negative, and hard-hearted.
Very hard. I
Yeah.
think the word brash was used,
Hmm.
like really rigid, you know? And I'm still some of those things in certain triggers. And God is still, we're never done healing until we're home with the Lord, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in my personal life, I'm always working on something when God brings something up to the surface. Now, it's not an everyday thing. It's, it could be once a month or whatever.
Yeah.
Something gets kind of bubbled up and I'm like, oh, I got to call my practitioner, you know? Um,
Uh-huh.
but, I live in more spaces of joy and, um, inspiration of I want to inspire everyone is to know your future. It's not done. Every decision you make is changing your future. It's changing the trajectory of your life, right? And so why not have some kind of say in it? We're not pawns out
Mhm.
here just doing and willy-nilly taking up space. We get to choose every day, right? And so along with healing, I think it's also stretching your muscles, right? So if God is giving me a new muscle because I've healed something, I sometimes have to stretch it out. And so trying to not be so brash or finding joy in the hard things, right? Um, like I may not have everything or, there are days where I'm like, oh, my client load today is really light. And I'll think, gosh, am I just not doing well as a practitioner? What's happening? And God's like, no, you need a break. Come on, go paint your nails or
It's
take
that
a
filter
nap.
again. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah, I love
that's,
though your awareness of the thoughts coming through because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that we all have thoughts coming through all day
of
long,
course.
but
Yep.
most people don't tune into them. They just react to them. They have the emotional response to them, but
Yeah.
they don't hear them. They don't
Yes,
even
exactly.
notice that there's a whole conversation in their brain going, nobody likes you as a practitioner. Yeah, that's why your schedule's light. You know
Yeah,
that you're not really good at this. You should probably just call it
exactly.
quits.
Yeah,
If you don't even know, if you haven't practiced tuning in to the conversation in your mind, how can you take a thought captive? The Bible says take every thought captive, right? Like, man, part of it is just tuning in. Like, if you're listening to
exactly.
this and you haven't practiced that, just listen as an observer to the dialogue happening in your brain all day long.
Exactly.
Notice, is it kind? Is it encouraging? Is it grace filled? Does it line up with the voice of heaven, the culture of heaven? Or does it sound a little bit more like the voice of the enemy? No one loves
Exactly.
you. You're never good at this. Your future is going to be terrible. Because I want you to know you have a choice. Just like Tiffany said, Not only about
Mm-hmm.
your future, but about the voice that talks in your head. You can retrain your brain. You have neuroplasticity. Your brain can
Yes.
change when you force it to think new thoughts for a while. And you can tell the enemy, you don't get to bother me like that anymore. I refuse to listen to you anymore.
Exactly. I was going to say neuroscience has proven we can change our neural pathways by changing how we think about things.
Yeah.
And so that is on the fly. You get to do that. You don't have to have a session, schedule it out, You
Mm-hmm.
can do it right now in real time.
You don't have to
So
live with the bully that's in your head all the time because that is
exactly.
draining your energy. That's
Exactly.
exhausting to
And
live with that in
we
your ear all
we
day.
learn that bully, we learn their voice very early in life. I have worked with
Yeah.
a lot of kids that are young that lose their voice because of that bully.
Hmm.
So
So when you're meeting with couples, how do you address it when one couple, like one of the spouses wants to be there, the other one kind of got drug in? Like, is that awkward for you? Do you get kind of excited to be like, okay, I'm going to see if I can
it
not win
used to
this
be
person over,
awkward.
but
Yeah. It used to be awkward. It used to be like, oh gosh, like, do you really want to be here? Like, I don't want to work with somebody who doesn't want to actually do the work.
yeah.
And so we would have a conversation typically with clients that are coming in, new clients, couples. I will ask them a bunch of questions of where do you feel like you're at? Are you willing like to do the work? Because some clients are like, no, I've already signed on that line. I've had clients who have the spouse has drugged them in and the other spouse is already out. They're already divorced in their mind and it doesn't work. And they do get divorced and it's sad and hard and it doesn't mean you should stop doing your work. It doesn't mean you should stop the healing because eventually you're going to want a new relationship. And you're only accountable for you. And so over the years, I've had clients drag a spouse in, and the spouse starts to see. So I'll say, if you really don't want to be here, my job, what I feel like one of the main jobs that I have as a practitioner is to empower my clients. You get to choose today.
Mm-hmm.
So if husband and wife comes in, and husband is drug mom or wife in, and wife is like, no, I don't want to do this. And I get that kind of information out of those questions. I will say, well, today we're not even going to pray and ask the Lord to choose who. We're going to work on the one, and you get to kind of sit and watch. And it may be
Yeah.
several sessions where they sit and watch, and they're starting to see the heart of the person that they married and what they're struggling with, and it will give them a new vision of that offers grace. It gives them an ability to see their brokenness of their
Hmm.
spouse. And then they will eventually, if they come enough and say, oh, okay, I think I want that too, you know, because I
Hmm.
really encourage my clients, spouses you're responsible for you. You can only do what you do for you, right? And so my stuff is my stuff. I'm responsible for it. I need to deal with it. If I'm not in the space of willing to deal with my stuff, there is nothing anybody can do about that,
Which is so
right?
sad when you're the
I
spouse
know.
of somebody who is not willing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, that's heartbreaking.
It is rocked me a couple of times of the idea of maybe I shouldn't work with married couples. This is so hard to watch it fall apart. Because, we're not in their daily lives. We're seeing those hard, vulnerable moments. And so it's the idea of knowing when they walk away that they're done in their marriage. But it can feel sad, but I also know God's hand is in it and he's doing what he does. And so
Hmm.
if that is what is the intent of the two people, the person who is willing to do their work will continue to do their work and God will meet them in it and they will be blessed in that.
Hmm.
And eventually the other person will they will do some of the work or they'll go through several broken relationships and realize, oh, okay, maybe it wasn't.
Maybe I should go do some work.
well, maybe it wasn't just the wife, or maybe it wasn't just the husband. Maybe it was kind of both of us, because,
Yeah.
it kind of is actually both of us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then this is kind of going back, but how many years did you do? Like, what was your healing length and journey and frequency with Splankna like? Because my story to Splankna is pretty, I don't know, like my son was little. He had one session that drastically changed his whole life, which changed my life because then I'm the mom raising him. Um, so what sometimes I feel like I don't want to oversell Splankna, like, hey, just do one session and your whole life changes. Like, I want them to hear from you. It's not always just one session, everything changes. What was that like?
so certain things changed in one session, and then certain things changed over time of several sessions. It just depends on the amount of work, or, I was pretty avoidant of my own stuff for a long time. I would give just this, and hold all that back. And, because it felt like I got to guard this, I got to be protective of this. So I think it's a personality kind of type, um, and so the love thing, I had, feeling loved, experiencing love, um, understanding that I was lovable, that took a long time because it was a very deep wound. There were a lot of layers. And so sometimes, and I had not done a lot of work on that because I was guarding it very closely.
Hmm.
And so, there are some things I remember, actually, that was a one session. I had been battling depression. I didn't know I was depressed, but I had been battling depression. My husband knew I was depressed, and I had to go to the doctor, and my doctor was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, yes, those things that you're talking about, that's depression." I thought depression was just this and not that. And so, um, I had been battling it. I had started taking some medication for it for a while. The symptoms never went away. Still had all the symptoms. Just could get out of bed. That's, at this point. And this is when I was actually working for the Institute, and we were at a master's training, and there was an odd number of people. So we were working one-on-one with each other, and I had to sit in and be one of the people. And I did not want to.
A client. You were like a practice
Uh-huh.
client.
I was in a practice session, and it went right to the depression and the root of that. And it was healed in that moment. And it was the first time that I knew in session that it was healed.
Whoa.
It was done.
You could just feel it.
It was like this real deep reassurance that God was like, yeah, this is gone. I've taken it. It's done. And that was probably 13 years ago. And I have been off medication, and obviously with a doctor's, walking me through that.
Right,
You don't
right.
just go
Yes.
off your medication.
Yes, thank you for saying that.
Yeah. But I knew it was done that day.
Yeah.
So, and I've never looked back at it.
So I know there's really no way to really know the answer to this, but I'm just curious your perception on it. But like the way I think of it is like if you are experiencing depression and you've been through a lot of trauma, there's likely lots of layers, different places and points in your life that built that depression. So you might do a session one day, another session 2 weeks later, another session 2 weeks later, and then you do like the final layer of where depression was established in your life. And then the bottom drops out and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like a whole new person. More than just like depression came from one time in your life and you worked on that and now you know what I mean? Like, is that how you see it? So you're working on the legs of the things that hold up the symptom you're having. So every session you go to, if you don't get breakthrough in your depression on your first session, it's like, hey, we just took out a leg,
Yeah.
right?
I always tell clients who ask me, "Well, how many sessions do you think?" Oh, I can't tell you that. I don't know. You need to pray to the Lord and ask him. If you
Mm.
have been working on something for years, it might be one session. If you haven't been, if you've been hiding and putting in a box the things and not letting anybody get to it, obviously that might take a little longer.
Yeah, like is this day one of you starting your healing journey, or have you been in it for a while
Yeah.
and you
When
just need
I,
some?
when I first started my healing journey, it felt like it was a lot in the beginning, like years, but I had a lot of trauma,
Yeah.
a lot of different things. And s- so I don't hope for anybody that it would take that long, but sometimes it does.
Yeah.
So
You had a big pile of garbage to sift through. You started with
exactly,
a big pile. Yeah.
exactly.
I think that's why, like, my son's was so instant, so like he was so little.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think his symptoms of his debilitating separation anxiety really were hinging on one major event in his life, which I go
Yeah.
into that whole story in a different episode. But
I
um,
love when I get to work with children because they don't have years of layers. They don't have the big
mhm.
pile of garbage. They have the
Yeah.
little trash
And second
bag.
order themes don't usually, we don't have a
Right.
lifetime of protecting this thing.
Exactly. Because I'm like, you're getting to this so young, you don't have to fight back all those layers and do all those sessions. If I would have done my stuff when I was young, I would have been a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting with kids. First of all, it's just so adorable to listen
I
to
know.
this little 4-year-old be like, I forgive my teacher. Like their tiny little
Mm-hmm.
voices repeating after you. Even the freedom prayer afterwards, like
Mm-hmm.
renouncing and God, I choose to let you be in my heart. You're the one that keeps, like it's like I can hardly even handle how cute it is. But I have a 5-year-old at home too, and she's done Splankna with me, and at 5 years old, she gets what we're doing. Like, she can wrap her mind around what we're doing, which I think sometimes, if you have an adult come in and a trauma from age 4 comes up, it's so easy to think, oh, 4, that was no big deal. I don't even remember that. Like, there's no way that could have affected me. But when
Exactly.
you're living with a 4-year-old, like her and I have had deep conversations at 4 years old. Like, 4-year-olds are so smart. They are so aware of the
Exactly.
emotions of the people around them.
Yeah.
Deep thoughts about, well, if this happened, that must mean this is true. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
I always want to remind people of that when they're like 50 and we're working on something that happened at age 4. I just want to be like, I need you to know this was a very, very big deal to you when you were 4 years old, even
Exactly.
though it sounds silly now.
It's so interesting how we try to rationalize something like that. I had a conversation with somebody recently about, oh, when I was, 3, my older brother did this to me. And I'm like, why are you okay with that? That's weird. And they're like, oh, it's no big deal. It was just me and my brother. That's how we did things. And I'm like, that would be like if your nephew did that to your 3-year-old niece. And he's like,
Oh,
oh, that's not okay.
yeah. Yeah,
Like,
people get very
exactly.
familiar with their stories. Their story was just normal. It was all they ever knew. And I think sometimes when they say it out loud, even for the first time in a Splunk session to a practitioner, um, like you said, just being able to say it back to them like, hey, what I'm hearing you say is that you experienced this, this, and this. And like having someone tell you your own story back in a different wording, it really does be like, wow, yeah, of course that marked me. That was a big deal. I didn't really realize that until right now.
Exactly.
Even that can be so powerful, like validating almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't just work with married couples, you work with kids. I
I work
wanted
with
people
all
to hear
kinds
that
of people.
because you're virtually trained, you're able to meet with people online from any city, any country, whatever they can get on your schedule.
I also mentor practitioners.
You do?
Oh, I
Okay.
do. So
Yeah.
I worked for the Institute for 10 years, helping train practitioners. And life had changed, and I had stepped away from doing that. But I still mentor practitioners. I help them as practitioners and them feeling confident in what they're doing,
Yeah.
but also in their healing.
Mm-hmm. So what does that look like if there's a practitioner listening? Is it just getting on your schedule, that link that, okay.
Yes. Yep.
So if you're hearing Tiffany and you are a practitioner and you would love someone to come alongside you as you're walking through your own healing or learning more about how to do this modality, or if you are looking for a practitioner, but it's been scary and you don't know, like if you're hearing Tiffany and you're like, okay, this lady sounds like someone I can relate with. Like I feel like I could call her up and do a session. I want you to know everything that you could ever need to know about her and how to get a hold of her, where she lives, located. All of that is at lauramilliken.com, and you click on the preferred practitioners button. You'll find her website, contact information there. And I would just really encourage you, if you are feeling a pull to start your own healing journey, to try a Splankna session, just pray about it and ask the Lord, is this what you have for me? Ask him. And man, I don't personally know anyone who has done a session and deeply regretted it. I hear
Same.
time and time again of people coming in nervous. I don't know what this is going to be like. I don't know what's going to come up. I don't know if I'm going to cry. And then they leave. And I mean, it is almost every single time. It's like, wow, I want to do that again. That was
Exactly.
incredible. It's so much more gentle than people anticipate it to be, I guess.
Exactly. Yes. I had somebody actually recently say that.
Really?
They were surprised at how much they didn't have to share,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes we don't want
If
to
you
get
don't want
mucked
to.
into the details.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. I just remember I did talk therapy with a counselor face to face for a while, and it was great. But I just remember being like, it felt, I don't know, torturous. It felt so hard to try to put words to what had happened and try to explain the story to her in a way that could really convey why it affected me so much. And I love that kind of Splankna takes the pressure off of the client to have to find the right words for it all.
Exactly.
Yeah, low pressure. I think that's one of my favorite things about it. So
Yes, same.
yeah. So anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you for telling us your story.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and just introducing yourself again to the audience. I do have another episode with Tiffany. It's been back a while. I should have looked up what episode that was before we hit record here, but I'll put it in the show notes as well if you want to go listen to her other interview and you're talking more about your own personal story, your own personal healing through childhood stuff. So I'll put that in the show notes as well. But I just wanted to thank you guys for being here, for listening, for caring about healing, in a faith-based perspective. Like, what does God have for me? Who does He say that I am? How do I unwind the effects of the world and get back to my original creation, what God originally had planned for me when He invented me? The people listening to this podcast, you guys are near and dear to my heart because you are my people. You care and you believe that when God says He wants to redeem, you actually believe Him. I love that so much. So I want to just encourage you to stay on that path. We're going to continue on next week. We have another interview with another practitioner sharing their Splankna story, what they've seen God do in their own life and in other people's lives. So stay tuned and we'll see you next week.